Cheers, y'all.
Oh, that's the horn from the party train.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this fine podcast, radio program, and video extravaganza known internationally as the world-famous Smokin' and Toastin'. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to show number 281, and happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody. It is the 5th of May, and I have to say, some people love Halloween, some people love Christmas, but my two favorite holidays are always St. Patrick's Day and Cinco de Mayo.
And they both fell on the same day this year.
Yeah, so we got to do actual shows
Thursday,
on the days,
show day. That's awesome.
which was kind of cool. And of course, you know why those are my two favorite holidays, because St. Patrick's Day is all about drinking green beer and Irish whiskey, and of course, Cinco de Mayo is all about the spirit of the agave. So Mexican spirits and Mexican beer as we celebrate Cinco de Mayo with two very special guests today. My favorite tequila drinking buddy, Brianna Andrus, is here, and she is also Adam's wife, and we are thrilled to have you here on the show. We are also a little irritated with you because you're taking Adam away from us, but
tough time.
We thought,
love us while we're here.
That's exactly why we got you on today. Well, that, and because we're going to be drinking some very interesting Mexican spirits, and in honor of that, and in honor of Cinco de Mayo, it was the perfect day to welcome back our tequila expert, the one and only Liliana Rodriguez. And Liliana, we're going to change your title today.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I know you didn't like being called an expert, but we kind of forced it on you.
Okay.
You're still an expert, but now you're an Agave Spirits expert.
Oh,
Because
my
we're going to be doing, because we're not doing tequila today. We're doing other Agave Spirits that you brought from your personal collection.
But listen, I'm just getting my feet wet with the Mezcals.
Yeah.
I visited Oaxaca 2 or 3 times, but it's a whole world
She just visited
out there.
Oaxaca 2 or 3 times. That's all. I'm just telling you. You walk in the room, you know more than all of the rest of us combined about mezcal and sotol, and we're hoping you will teach us some good things today. So we are looking forward to that.
Glad to be here.
Do want to say, by the way, thank you to last week's special guest, our resident whiskey expert and spirit entrepreneur, Mr. Chris Hart. We had great fun with Chris on the program, as we always do. And by the way, Chris's third cousin, I don't know if you know this, Chris Hart's third cousin is Kevin Hart, the comedian.
I'm crying.
Really?
I don't know. I just made that up. I just completely made that up. But Kevin Hart just announced that he's coming out with his own.
Chris is substantially taller than Kevin.
Yeah, he is. And substantially paler as well.
That's what I was going to say. So that's where we're looking at the height.
Yeah, exactly. But Kevin Hart's coming out with a tequila. That's another celebrity tequila. So we'll talk about that a little bit.
All right, Kevin Hart, your tequila better not suck.
Yeah. Please.
We have high expectations.
Please, we want you to be in the, like, George Strait's Código tequila is pretty darn good.
I told you. So I actually got to taste that McGregor one, the Conor McGregor Proper 12.
That is what you do not want to aspire to.
Absolute terrible reviews, and after tasting it, it deserves worse. It's so bad. It is not good.
It reminds me of, I think, the worst spirit we've tasted on this show, not including Malort, which was, there for a joke to begin with. Thank you, Ian. Twice. But I think the worst spirit other than Malort that we've tasted was, do you remember that hopped whiskey? It was like an IPA whiskey.
That was the Corsair.
That was awful.
It was, and it stunk up the room.
Oh,
it
did.
was terrible.
It did.
Hey, kudos for that company for trying some new things.
I
right?
totally will give them that. And some of their other whiskeys are very good.
Yes, but man, that one was a miss.
Yeah,
swing and a miss.
Swing and a miss. You got to.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have a happy accident. Like when the peanut butter and the chocolate fell in together, and you have Reese's. But when you have turpentine and rubbing alcohol, and you call it Proper 12, it's just.
Oh my God.
It would be
in the spirit of today. I say es no bueno.
It would be interesting if we were able to have Conor McGregor on the show, but of course we would never get him. That's a guest that Chris Hart would get for his show,
right?
Because he gets all the celebrities. He's really good at that.
Can I say something about along those lines?
Please do.
About bad stuff.
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is a disclaimer. I'm
Okay.
here because I'm an enthusiast. I like to explore things,
Expert.
and you can be totally honest. In fact, we all gonna discover these flavors together.
So these are none
So
of these
you
are open
can,
yet.
if you
I
don't
know.
know, they're not open.
So this is all brand new to everybody today on
Yes.
all these.
Now-
So you can be
Fantastic.
totally honest
Well-
with your.
Even though we are occasionally accused of liking everything, which is absolutely not true. We don't like everything. But that said, we generally bring in things we think we're going to like if we're going to do the tasting. But I do wonder if Conor McGregor were sitting here as a guest on the show, and he's a formidable man. I mean, he's a very successful fighter. Just being in the same room with him, you would kind of like lean back the other way.
I can confidently say he could probably beat me up.
I'm thinking he could take both of us with very little problem. But here's the thing. I do wonder how our integrity would hold up. Would we be able to be honest and tell the man his whiskey sucks?
I would have to. I mean, that's an ass whipping I just have to take. I think that's what.
At least the story would be great. Oh, Ian, you got beat up? Yeah, it was Conor McGregor. So, Well, thank you for joining us for the show today. We have a lot to talk about. We have cigars we want to talk about. We have, and in perfect timing for this show, since our Agave Spirits expert and my number one tequila buddy are both here, they have just released from the San Francisco World Spirits organization that does the big yearly tastings. They've just released their best tequilas and mezcals of the year. So we'll be taking a look at that list, seeing if Liliana has tried any of these and what she thinks about them. So
And you have to be honest.
Yes. Well, and I love when Chris Hart is here because we'll go through a list of the best whiskeys from one of the websites or something, and he'll go, "Oh yes, that's very good. That's very good. That one's garbage."
Garbage. What is it? Garbage liquid.
Yeah, garbage. He's quick to say that. So you can definitely be honest. We'll also be sampling some beers today from, and we're doing all Texas beers today.
Awesome.
I didn't do all Mexican beers because I thought that would be too much in the same style. But we are doing all Texas beers, and some of them are slightly leaning into the spirit of the day. From our own Eureka Heights here in Houston, we'll be trying their Un Poquito Más. It's a Kolsch that they've come out
I
with.
haven't tried that one yet.
All right, so we'll be trying that.
interested
Look
on
forward to that. Also, local from Humble, Texas, Southern Star has a pecan stout called Metzli. M-E-T.
They're from Conroe.
Z-L-I. They're from. Oh, did I say Humble? They're from Conroe. You're correct. And then from Dallas, the Manhattan Project Beer Company, we'll be trying a beer called Wise Monkeys. It is a Belgian golden strong ale.
That sounds
And
awesome.
it is higher ABV even than the pecan stout. So we'll be
we
doing
had
that
a
last.
Manhattan Project just recently too.
Yes,
that was-
we've had several of their
Yeah,
beers,
yeah,
and they've
they're
been very
great.
good.
Yeah.
They have those very kind of like understated, scientist-looking
Mm-hmm.
cans. They're very interesting. Of course, this one has a monkey on it, which I don't know whether that makes it look more scientific or less, but we'll get to that. And our spirits today are from Liliana's personal collection, and every single one of these arrived here unopened. So either you've got a very substantial collection or a lot of willpower. One of the two.
Well, actually, only one. The rest I just acquired.
You just acquired. Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, we appreciate the opportunity to taste these with you, and really, really looking forward to that. We'll tell you about some cigars to watch for today, 11 cocktails to make for Cinco de Mayo, and we will also, of course, have our normal installment of the most popular segment on the program, which is, in fact, Drinking News. And today's Drinking News teaser headline is, "It's your money, spend it wisely." And we'll get to that coming up. I've got a whole lot of other things we can get to. Prices for Cuban cigars are not only going up, they're likely to triple. And so we'll give you
Is
that
there
story.
anything right now that the price is not going up
No,
on?
I don't think so. And I'm so glad that just before all this crazy price increase stuff started, I signed a new lease at my apartment. So I'm so glad I did that then instead of now, because I have a feeling it would be a lot more. And that in a year I'm in for a rude awakening.
Right.
But it's going to be interesting. So great show today, Liliana. We are so glad you're here. I want to jump into the cigars because I know you had an opportunity to smoke something today, Ian. You want to tell us about what you did?
I did. I went by Casa this morning, and I picked up a Tatuaje. I hadn't had a Tatuaje in a while. And
Those are great cigars.
I love like everything in our line. They're just so good. I haven't had anything from them that I don't like. This was the La Riqueza, Riqueza. Am I even close on that?
La Riqueza,
Yeah,
the
all right.
richness.
Oh, is that what it means? Awesome.
Not bad.
So this is a line that they had out. They didn't quite discontinue it, but they stopped making it in 2017. They just brought it back, and this is the newest iteration of it. So this is the 2022 La Riqueza.
I remember reading about that. Yes.
This is the Robusto. It was 5 5/8 inches by 54 ring gauge with a Connecticut broadleaf wrapper, a Nicaraguan binder, Nicaraguan filler. The appearance on this dark chocolate colored wrapper, softbox press, single gold band with red background. Really nice looking. Closed foot on the end of the cigar. That's when the for those who aren't cigar smokers, that's when the tobacco covers the very end of the cigar. It's not just open. Mostly smooth wrapper overall, firm feel overall. The pre-light sniff on this was very simple. It was chocolate and barnyard, which was very interesting mix. The pre-light draw on this, I used a clip. It had a tight draw. Of course, it has a closed foot, so I kind of expected that and didn't worry about it too much. I got a lot of leather and spiciness right on the lips. Fermented hay, mocha, barnyard, rich earth, and a little dark fruit in the background on that. The initial light on this, I don't have a song for it yet, but I got the Nicaragua pepper blast right off the bat.
I can do my version of the song. I don't mind. I don't mind. It's
For the love of all that's decent. Please no. I will go blind in one ear. Yeah.
I've never heard that one before. That's good.
The draw opens up immediately after I lit it to a medium draw. So I expected that draw to open up, and it did. Dark, leathery earth and pepper immediately right past the Nicaraguan pepper blast. Spicy tingle on the lips. Retrohale is spicy cayenne and leathery earth. The first third of this, medium to full strength right off the bat. I mean, this didn't take much in the way of developing. It started off with a pepper blast and then went straight to like right in between medium and full. The flavor is spicy and nutty flavored, backed by substantial pepper and mocha. Not so subtle overall roasted coffee bean with charred oak and toast. Sneaky sweetness and hints of dark fruit and licorice lurking around in the background. Leather laces throughout. Leather laces, because I thought that was fun.
I like that.
I couldn't figure out how to do leather and lace, but leather laces,
Alliteration and some element of poetry.
Right. The retrohale is charred toast and pepper, solid ash, good burn. The second third of this, copious amounts of smoke. Mocha and nutty flavors dominate here. All backed by massive cedar and pepper flavors. Slightly sweet and spicy with a hint of savory stock kind of going through it. Dark fruit and licorice remain in the background along with some leathery notes. Leathery tingle on the lips remain the whole way through. This cigar was really, really fun and interesting. After every puff, you just had that little flavor. And it's like when you have like a good flavor of chapstick,
Yeah.
Little hint of that flavor always going on, right? Retrohale is charred toast with and nutty with some pepper, solid ash, perfect burn. The last third of the cigar, pepper notes remain constant. Toast and bitter mocha follow with a touch of sweetness in the background. Savory flavors are a little less prominent here. Leather and earth shine through with dark fruit and licorice. Charred oak is more distinctive here on the end. The retrohale is nutty and toasty with pepper and a touch of mint to it. Solid ash, perfect burn. This was a $12 cigar, so it's a little pricey.
Tatuajes can be a little pricey.
Yeah, they're not what you'd call the budget line cigars, but they're always good. And I gave this a solid 5. You get exactly what you pay for in a $12 cigar. It's a bigger cigar, so no noobs should pick this one up right off the bat and go try it, because you'll probably be hiccuping pretty quick. So, but it was quite good. I enjoyed it. I had it with a Topo Chico, and it went well.
Very nice. Very
What
nice.
is the average price for a good cigar?
Well, that's like what's the average price on a tequila?
It varies.
It's very subjective, and
I think you can start getting good ones in the $6 to $8 range.
so $6 to $8 range. You're almost guaranteed a good one at the $12 range.
Right.
Some bat a little better than others on the average, but there's that. There's some $20 cigars that are worth every penny. You'll pick up a Plasencia.
And quite frankly, there's some $20 cigars that aren't as good as $8 cigars that I've had.
That's true too.
So there's all of that.
So anywhere between $6 and $20, I'd say. But the
Thanks for
sweet
being so
spot,
specific.
the sweet spot finding, the sweet spot I think is from about that $6 point up to about $10. I think you're pretty safe getting cigars in that range,
Yeah,
especially from the bigger names because
Absolutely.
they're very competitive and they're all trying to put out the best product
it's
they can.
getting to where, and of course, as we mentioned, everything's going up, but it's getting to where that price is kind of inching towards the 8 to 10 rather than the 6 to 8.
Next year we'll be like, remember when you could buy a cigar for $6?
Yeah. I have this great old vintage sign hanging above the door in my apartment that says "Cigars 5 cents."
Right.
It's just to remind me of how good it.
Back when we
apparently
used to
be.
walk to work uphill both ways in the snow, we could buy a
that's-
cigar for $6.
And that's how I met your mother. So I had an interesting one today, Ian. I smoked the Trinidad Espiritu Series Number 1 Toro. What's that?
I looked hard at that when I walked in the
It's a
humidor.
beautiful cigar.
Yeah.
It's got a very colorful band on it. It's very well rolled. Looks great. It's entirely possible, by the way, that I've offered my tasting notes for this cigar on the show before, maybe a couple of years ago. To be honest, I don't really remember, and I also don't really remember what the cigar tasted like if I did. So I thought this will be good, you know. So I really wanted to smoke one of these, and besides, as we know, cigar blends can change over time, so it could be a little different from what I smoked back then, and hopefully it's still relevant enough to see what one of these smokes like today. So several years ago, tobacco expert and master blender Rafael Nodal brought in his buddy and Maverick cigar blender to help him revive the Trinidad brand. That man's name is AJ Fernandez. I am a self-professed fanboy of Mr. Fernandez. I love his work.
AJ, isn't he the car driver?
That's a different AJ.
Okay.
AJ and Rafael have collaborated before with great results, so my expectations were pretty high. The Espiritu is a Nicaraguan puro, which is, quite frankly, where AJ does some of his best work. With all the tobacco in this cigar from Nicaragua, I had a pretty good idea I was going to like this one. Pre-light sniff and draw, both rich and interesting. Barnyard was the primary note. Bales of hay and a rich sort of loamy soil. I picked up a little bit of pepper, but once I lit it, our old friend, the Nicaraguan pepper blast. I decided not to sing because I don't want to embarrass myself in front of Liliana. I've already done it many times in front of Brianna. So
I was going to say, what about me?
no, you're
Some things you can't unhear.
I'm
It's nightmare fuel.
Anyway, the Nicaraguan pepper blast stepped up to say hello. So I wrote in my notes I was gonna do like an Adele thing, "Hello Now from AJ's Past," Nicaraguan pepper blast. But why not? I'm chickening out on singing it. You really don't want me to. You really do. All right, the spice leaned more toward red pepper than traditional black, but just as the NPB usually does, it settled down a little bit once the cigar began to burn for a moment. I picked up a definite creaminess right off the bat, and the Espiritu produced a healthy volume of very rich smoke. Some of the barnyard note that I'd picked up on the pre-light was noticeable during the burn of the first third, and even though I know it sounds like that might not be a pleasant thing, it really was. I also got leather and roasted nuts and a hint of licorice. At first, I thought that the Espiritu might not be as complex as some of AJ's other blends, but it kept opening up the more I smoked it and giving me more to contemplate. The construction was excellent. Ash held on well past an inch and probably would have stayed for the first third at least, but I was chicken and I tipped it off at just over an inch and a half or so just to be safe. Spicy pepper notes continued into the second third, but they didn't dominate the other flavors. There was even a bit of sweetness that developed, which balanced the cigar out really nicely. Dried fruit and more nuts in the second third. In the final third, baking spice, earth, and a really smoked wood note joined the spices. A different spice, maybe more like paprika, but not too strong, was on the retrohale, along with a little vanilla note. I would say that the Espiritu is not as strong as AJ's New World line or the Enclave. I'd peg it at a solid medium in terms of body, and that was actually quite nice because it was very flavorful at that strength. You could really pull the flavors out of it. Construction was excellent all the way through, with a pretty straight burn line and solid ash, a different profile from the AJ smokes that I usually enjoy, and this was very enjoyable. I liked the Espiritu a lot. Coming in at about $10 to $11. It's a little pricier than some of AJ's others, which is where I struggled a little bit with price to quality on this one. Compared to other $10 or $11 cigars I've smoked recently, this is a solid winner. That said, I'm not sure it's better than like the Diaz de Gloria, which I can usually get for like $8 or $9.
All right.
So it was a little hard to peg. I still, though, cannot argue with the amazingness of this cigar. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm going to add it to my regular rotation. I liked it that much. Highly recommended. Big thumbs up. And I settled at a 5.5 for the price to quality. So it was still
You made it sound
just
pretty awesome.
I loved it. In fact, it was the only one. I only bought one, and now I'm like, I should have bought a handful of these. They were really good. So, all right, we have a lot to do, including spirits to taste. That will begin in our next segment. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want Liliana to school us a little bit in Mexican spirits and agave spirits and what is different about mezcal and Stout from the more traditional tequila. Smoking and Toasting. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. Our program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are on show number 281. Happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody. We'll be talking about the best tequilas and mezcals and doing some tasting here, which we're going to get to actually pretty quickly. And if you want to go ahead and start some pouring.
Are you trying to tell me something?
During the break, Brianna was talking about the ratings that we give cigars, which made me think that I should probably say something more about the price to quality. Giving a cigar a 5.5 means that it actually just a little bit kind of punched above its price class, if you will. So the price to quality means that a 5 on the scale of 1 to 10 is actually a cigar where you get what you paid for. So it's anything that's above a 5 means it was probably, you wouldn't have been disappointed had it even cost a little more. Anything below a 5 could still be a good cigar, but maybe it was just a bit overpriced. So, all right. Ian is pouring our first agave spirit here, and I'm going to have him pass that bottle around. But before you do, show that to the camera. That is an
that bottle
absolutely
is
gorgeous bottle. And now all the spirits we're tasting today came to us from Liliana's personal collection. And so, Liliana, before we actually begin to taste this, I'm going to see if Ian can hold out and not taste it for a moment, even though it's sitting right in front of him. Ordinarily, he likes to begin his research a little early. But Liliana, what can you tell us about first of all, the explosion in agave spirits, because tequilas are more popular than ever, but not just tequilas. There's also some other agave spirits. Can you tell us a little bit about the difference between them and what makes something a tequila, what makes something a mezcal and sotol and so on?
Sure. We're going to be tasting today some mezcals. And in essence, when the Spaniards introduced the distillation process into Mexico, or the copper stills,
Right.
everything was called mezcal. In fact, in tequila was called Mezcal de Tequila, belonging to the town of Tequila.
Mezcal from tequila, basically, yeah.
So the mezcal cannot be tequila, but tequila is a type of mezcal.
Got it.
But it's only made with agave tequilana Weber, one plant, one type of agave.
Okay.
Versus mezcal is made with different agaves. And some are cultivated, and some are wild.
That's
Oh, wow.
interesting.
Just
that's pretty
collected.
cool.
Where the wild agave grows.
Now, the states where they are produced are also different. Tequila is very specific. The Consejo that regulates tequila, only Jalisco and also Michoacán, Guanajuato, Nayarit, in a small area of Tamaulipas.
And if it doesn't come from there, it can't be called tequila, even if it is from just the one correct agave plant,
Yes.
correct?
And then the mezcal is mainly, one of the states that is mainly a producer is Oaxaca, which is, I love that state.
And you've only been there a couple of times.
Guerrero, Zacatecas, Michoacán, Durango, and now Puebla. Now, besides that, remember that in the old days, a worm was also included in every bottle of mezcal, and
Right.
it's something that is changing, and that
Right.
I believe is because the American taste, and some people might not like it or
Might
don't
find
think
it,
it's
not appetizing.
Right. But traditionally, there's several stories about the worm. Some people say, well, it gives authenticity to the because it's a moth, it's the larvae of a moth that inhabits the agave plant. Also, they said it shows you the purity of the mezcal. If you see that bottle that I brought from 1994, the worm is still intact. It hasn't deteriorated. So
There it is. Ian, maybe you can show that
so
to the
it's
camera. The worm's right in the bottle there.
So it's a good mezcal. Another thing is that some people use it as publicity strategies.
Right. I know for years, most people I knew that would talk about tequila thought that tequila had a worm in the bottle, but that actually was not
it's
ever
a
the thing, was it?
No tequila should have a worm. And then the other thing they say is it hasn't been proven that it improves the flavor. So we know probably that's not true. Now, mezcal is always been the beverage of the poor, the people in the countryside, the people who were not very educated, but that we have seen, we have witnessed.
More like a peasant.
Drink. Also, main difference, tequila is now in big factories and everything is automated, the mills and everything. Mezcal, on the contrary, a lot of it is still being handmade.
Very, very much handmade.
And in small family concentrated
Right.
operations.
Now,
So,
I was going to ask you this. I've tried a number of mezcals, and in my experience, I find it to generally have a smokier flavor than tequila. Is that something consistent throughout mezcal?
yes, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay. Remember the process of tequila, you collect the piñas, the core of the agaves, and then you roast them, and then they get smashed, and then filter, and then they go to fermentation. Well, the mezcal producers, they leave the fiber in for the fermentation. So that creates a lot of
more
interesting
more
flavors.
smoky flavors and things like that. I have to just wonder, going way back in history, who looked at the agave plant and thought, if we take just that center and we do all these things to it and then ferment it, we're going to wind up with something special? Like who had the forethought to know? You know?
Well, that happened hundreds of years ago,
Yeah.
and it was the Zapotecs and the Mixtecs and everything, and they do have a legend that the goddess Maya well actually sent that thunder and lightning into the core of an agave, and when they drank that juice that was coming out of the core of the agave, they knew they had something special.
Well, they
and they
certainly
call
did.
And they call it aguamiel or honey water because it has the core has a lot of carbohydrates. So that gives it a special
And then
sweetness.
somebody left it sitting out a little too long.
And then it was even
Wow, it got better.
And then the other difference is that for the fermentation process, the people who make tequila can actually add external yeast. And the people who make mezcal only use the natural yeast already present in the plant.
Now, I notice on this bottle it actually says young mezcal. Is mezcal, I know tequila, while it certainly can be aged, and some of the ones that I like the best have been aged, but it's not quite the same as, say, when you're working with whiskey, where you really are going to need a certain amount of aging before that's going to really be what you want to drink. With tequilas, not so much so. Is mezcal the same way or even more so?
We have the same classification according to the age.
Okay.
We have the joven, we have the reposado, which we're going to taste today, and then we have añejos, right? Although super or extra añejo is a word that tequila makers don't want the mezcal makers to use. Only the añejo. But
But extra añejo is just like over 2 years, right?
Extra, yeah, 3 to
It's
5.
just-
3
yeah,
to
it's
5.
just over 2 years. It's like it's because 2 years isn't aged.
It's a,
It's not like whiskey where
Right.
you know
Well, 2 years
you
would be
start with
considered-
7 years.
2 years would be considered extremely young in the whiskey
yeah.
world.
Right.
So two more differences. One is that mezcal can only be exported if it's already bottled. You know,
Oh, so you can't get it in barrels.
No. The tequila sometimes is sent in big tanks here,
Mm-hmm.
and they do the dilution and they do the bottling. Not with mezcal. Has to
come
be
in the bottles.
exported to U.S., which is the main producer outside Mexico.
Well, this is certainly a beautiful bottle they exported it in. I can
And
tell you that.
the last difference is that the mezcals are 100% agave versus the tequila can be two types, 100% agave or mixto, which means 51% plus other carbohydrates.
But one of the things you taught us when we're shopping for tequila
don't
is
buy
to
the mixto.
always look for the one that is not the mixto, right? Look for the 100% agave. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And there's some legends linked to mezcal. One is that it will give a long life to those who drink it.
I'm going to go with that.
And a wonderful
Me too.
popular Mexican saying is, as a remedy for everything bad, and to celebrate all good as well. And that is mezcal.
Well, I am ready to celebrate. What do you guys think?
Okay.
Cheers to all of you.
Cheers.
So
Cheers.
I am excited to taste this. Cheers.
So you are tasting a tequila, a mezcal joven, that is made with a agave named Cruze. So there's many. Remember, tequila only one agave. The mezcal is gonna be with different types of plants and the agave plants, and they're gonna tell you on the label. This particular one came from a small town in Oaxaca, and it's called artesanal. Who can use the designation artesanal?
An artisan, obviously.
Yes, but that means that no instruments. Everything is made by hand.
No factory.
Okay. No
No
factory involved.
factory, no automated anything. And
This is a little spicy.
Spicy and smoky. Probably smokier than the bottle of mezcal I'm slowly working on at home. But it's really got a really rich flavor profile to it. And this is young. So if mezcal ages, does the smokiness recede at all, or does it stay with it through the aging process?
you know, I really don't know, but one thing that I know is that they use fresh, new white oak barrels. They don't use the recycled
Right.
barrels like tequila. But this is joven. This was never in
Was never in
any
an
type
aged
of
barrel.
barrels.
Yeah.
Now in Oaxaca, they are now honoring the people who make alebrijes, and I brought some alebrijes here to show you. It's a beautiful art with a special type of wood from the bursera trees, and then they paint them.
I love
And-
this guy.
yeah.
Really cool. Oh, I see.
So cool.
And they have to say
Artist.
Oaxaca and the name of the artist. And
Mm-hmm.
if not, they're not authentic. Now,
Martin Chilayete.
this bottle is actually giving you a lot of information. This Quiéreme Mucho, that's the brand. It means love me much. And the production
I
is
do,
in
I do.
in a little bitty town called San Pedro Tabiche in Oaxaca. They give you the type of oven. This is another main difference with agaves that are cooked for mezcal. They are cooked underground. They make a hole in the earth, and then they put rocks on the bottom. They put the piñas, and then they cover them with the leaves.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Okay.
And
Oh,
versus
wow.
tequila, they use autoclaves now. And
Right,
yeah.
right.
Uh,
Brianna, what's your take on this? I don't know how experienced you are with mezcal. I know you've had it before, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's really good. It's super smoky. I'm getting a chocolate taste. That's where that rich. I have like a little bit of like a dark chocolate after like undertone from it, but it's really good, really smooth on the finish.
what's your take, Ian?
I get that as well. The smokiness right up front. And interesting enough, when you smell it, you smell that agave, and then you also smell almost a mineral water kind of.
There's a little of that on
Background.
the finish, too.
But I was about to say I don't really get a lot of the mineral water once I taste it. But I get that there's almost a pine needle kind of flavor going on. Like, does that make sense?
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Like a little bit of a pine needle flavor going on. It's really interesting in there too.
Almost like a hop vibe to it, just a little bit. I think it's delicious.
How about the scent?
Oh,
Do you?
well, on the nose, I get more agave, more like sort of that pure agave sort of a scent on the nose, a little more, and you don't get as much. It's a little smoky on the nose, but not like it is on the palate once you drink it.
There's also a slight butteriness that happens too. That's like right there, kind of in the middle of the palate, right before you make that swallow. It's very interesting.
And it has a wonderful aftertaste.
Yes, it does.
I think it is great. $79.
I was just about to ask.
Total wine, but I Googled in Mexico, and it's the same price, $80.
Really?
Yeah, it was given in pesos, but it
Really?
was the same.
So I found it's been several years since I've been to Mexico, but I found when I was shopping for spirits there, rum and tequila, that they generally seemed less expensive by the time you translated them to American dollars and then what you would pay for the same spirit here in the U.S. Is that pretty normal? And if so, I would wonder why this would be at the same price. It's just the demand, perhaps, in Mexico?
Maybe, but remember now people have access to a lot of information.
That's true.
Maybe
That's
now
true.
people will say, well, I could buy it less expensive in Mexico. Let me go to the border.
Yeah, true. That's a good point.
But they started limiting now the number of bottles that you can bring to.
Interesting.
I think it's 2.
Two?
Anyways,
What are you gonna do with that if you're there for a week?
Do you realize how many times I'm going to have to go to the border?
now let me tell you a nice story that I read about this artist. His name is Ron Cooper. He is from New York City. He was born in 1943. And he loved to travel. And then in 1970, he went to Oaxaca. And Oaxaca is a place with a lot of art. Look at this.
Is that from Oaxaca?
That sure is awesome.
A lot
great.
of artisans.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And, I mean, you name it. And then they also collect the cochineal insect from the prickly pear to make a dye, and they dye textiles. There's so much. So he became fascinated, and he loved mezcal. So it took him, that was 1970. It took him until 1995. He's the first person who introduced mezcal into the United States market.
Wow, that's so cool.
Wow.
That's so cool. I want to mention, by the way, your outfit being from Oaxaca. I don't know if you realize this, but my outfit's from a very special place, too. I don't know if you've heard of the region of TJ, Max? It's a place, with some culture of its own. I'm not sure what the culture is, but it does have it.
Well, sometimes you can find interesting things there.
Yeah.
And the
certainly can.
scratchers for my cats, they're only like $3-4.
Oh, well, see, that's worth going right there.
If you go to Petco or PetSmart, you have to pay $15.
Okay.
And,
That's
so
outrageous.
Looks like we need to go to TJ Maxx, babe, and get some stuff for the girls.
Ian, let's go ahead and we want to taste 2 in this segment.
Okay.
Otherwise, we will fall behind, and you know how I hate to fall behind. So while he's opening that up, what can you tell us about it? Yes.
This wonderful añejo mezcal
Oh, I'm so excited.
is named Nucano. And
Nucano.
again, I like to look for history. Who was Nucano?
Now, we can already tell, by the way, just from being able to see through the bottle, that, and I'm sure, obviously, because of the aging, but this is a much darker colored liquid than the young mezcal.
Yeah, it was aged for 1 year, and the agave that this is made from is called an agave augustofolia, or the most common name espadín, like espada, espadín. And this particular name, Nucano, is the name of a warrior. He was a Mixtec warrior, and then he married a girl from a Zapotec group named Donahue, and they became in love and very happy, and in honor of him, they have this. You also see that there's an ancient god on the label. On the other side, that's Sipe Totec. Is a
Now's the
god
time
of
to show it
spring and
closer.
renewal.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay, so the copper the steel that they use is made of copper. The agave has to age 8 years before they collect them.
So the agave itself has to be 8 years.
Yes,
So it has to grow for 8 years.
Yes, it has to mature. And they also give you a lot of information. They give you the percent of alcohol per volume is 40%, so it's 80 proof, which is also, it varies from mezcal to mezcal. And this was aged for 1 year. Interestingly, I saw an NOM, and that I don't know if that's also gonna happen with a lot of the mezcals.
You definitely get with the
with tequilas.
mezcals.
Remember, we have to
tequilas,
look
you always
for
have the NOM.
But many of the mezcals don't have NOM.
What does NOM stand for again?
Norma Oficial Mexicana.
Gotcha.
That means that the Consejo is a council that goes to the factories and they observe and every step
Approve
of the
that all
process.
the steps are authentic. And, right.
So the meal that they use, this is also, if you notice, artesanal, right? So the meal that they
Handcrafted.
use, yes, is a tajona. It's an ancient stone that has a big piece of wood in the center, and they go around in a surface covered with rocks, but they use a horse to go around and smash.
Right, to power.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So remember, after that, there's the fermentation, and then after the fermentation is the distillation. And they usually tell you how many times this was distilled. I couldn't find it for this, but most of the agaves, I mean, the mezcals are also fermented twice. But
Okay.
there are a few that are only distilled once.
You know-
Pardon me, distillation, only once.
I just want to bring up, she's putting Chris Hart to shame. We had some excellent cognac last week, but he didn't tell us anywhere near this much stuff about it.
Because I love history.
Hey,
I
not
love
too much on
history.
Chris
So
Hart.
this is vastly different on
Yes,
the
it
nose.
is. Yes, it is.
But I'll tell you the big thing I picked up is that new oak barrel. It smells like fresh oak. It's really pretty amazing.
I really like this a lot. This
The-
is fantastic.
Another characteristic of artisanal mezcals is that they're small batches.
Right,
So
right.
the flavor might vary, right, from
Right.
batch to batch,
Right.
To
because
batch
they
from-
use up all the plants that were available at that time.
This is definitely, you can taste the aging versus the younger mezcal that we just had, which was very good. But this is
That-
like veering into
that
that.
oak adds a little
really-
astringency to the flavor too. A little bit of that makes you want to take another sip, kind of thing.
And it's also smoother, I think. You've got
This
the
is a very
smokiness.
smooth.
Yes, you've got the smokiness, but it's not as pronounced, and it's more like an undercurrent.
There's a
to
real
what's
kiss
happening.
of black pepper right as you
Yes.
swallow too. That's
Yes.
like in a very nice way.
I found a review by some experts on mezcal, and they said as tasting notes, vibrant notes of cherry, vanilla, cranberry, coffee, and dark chocolate, full body and velvety in the mouth.
It's wonderful, is what it is. It's absolutely wonderful.
I don't pick up the cherry on that. I can
I didn't either.
I can envision the chocolate a little bit, especially in the aftertaste.
I get it a little bit. It's not cherry like cherry pie. It's cherry like that, like almost like a chocolate covered cherry, sort of a vibe. It's not a tart cherry, if you know what I'm trying to say. It's more like just a little vague sweetness underneath the chocolate note.
Also, you know what? None of us has said it, but the smokiness is a little mellowed too.
Oh, much more so than
in this
The
particular
last one.
There's a little less of the smoky. I don't get the pine
no.
note like I got in the last one.
But this is
as well.
This
It's very
is
different.
so sippable, though. This is
We forgot one of the rules of tasting. We didn't
Oh, a
drink
palate
water.
Didn't clean
Yeah.
our palate.
Yes.
yeah, that's,
It's too late, but
sometimes
we'll do it
on this
before-
show we just move right ahead and damn the torpedoes.
We're moving too fast.
We're
kinda how it
excited.
is.
Well played,
Yeah.
sir.
This is very nice. I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to taste a beer in the next segment. It's time to get into some Un Poquito Más Kolsch from Eureka Heights here in Houston, Texas. I love Cinco de Mayo, don't you? It's
Yeah.
awesome. Happy Cinco de Mayo,
Happy Cinco
everybody.
de Mayo.
Happy Cinco de Mayo.
This-
This is.
This, Liliana,
I have-
this is just fantastic.
And this one was only $45.
Oh, love it. We'll be right back.
That's good.
Yeah, I was gonna say that
Oh,
one's
no.
delicious.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's Smoking and Toasting. This program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We're show number 281. Two very special guests today for Cinco de Mayo. Brianna Andrus is with us, and of course, Liliana Rodriguez, our resident Agave Spirits expert. And we're trying to do things that will make our Cinco de Mayo bright and shiny. And I'm feeling pretty good about it so far. Ian, while you're pouring, you texted me a photo this week. And I showed it to my wife. I thought, oh, Ian must be in San Antonio. It was you in front of a Cigars International superstore. And we just had been talking about how they just opened one up in San Antonio. And so I assumed that's where you were. I think we have the picture here. I brought it in.
You brought it in?
Yeah, but you weren't actually in San Antonio, I found out
No,
before
I
the
went
show.
up to Fort Worth area to visit with a buddy of mine just on Friday. I did the dash drive up there and drove back on Saturday. But while I was up there, we went to the Cigars International over there. And I could tell you.
Yeah, how was it? You totally should have
So
done a
we
segment
didn't
while
get
you were
to
there.
like hang out there and stuff like that, but it is a lovely lounge.
Yeah?
Like you walk in and it's this beautiful lounge and bar. They have this great outside patio out in front of it, and this enormous humidor that probably rivals the Casa de Monte Cristo here on 610. It's that size humidor. There's a little more
big
square.
humidor.
It was really interesting. It was really fun to walk around. The cashier for the cigars and everything is inside the humidor.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I don't think I've seen that before.
Like that guy just goes home and smells like humidor all day. It's gonna be great.
If they came out with humidor cologne, I would so wear that.
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
so good, you know.
So yeah, but it was really nice, and I wish we wandered around just a little bit in there. But man, their lounge area is really nicely set up. They have a full bar, fully stocked bar, bartender, and everything on the inside. It's a beautiful place. I could totally see myself hanging out there next time I go to Fort Worth.
All right, well, we'll have to either do that or make a road trip to San Antonio and check that one out. It should be good. Eureka Heights is a very good brewery here in our home area of Houston, and we've had these guys on the show before, but this, I think, is relatively new. I don't know whether they released it specifically in time for Cinco de Mayo or not,
I would assume so. They like to do timely.
but it is
releases.
called Un Poquito Más, which is just a little more, right?
It's a refreshing Kolsch style beer, packed its bags for an all-inclusive retreat to Paradise. It's two words,
Paradise.
parrot,
Oh.
as in like the bird parrot.
Somewhere Jimmy Buffett smiled.
Lime
that is
puree
so
and sea
cute.
salt combined with Pilsner malt create your perfect taco chaser.
All right,
they always have something
so we'll
for us.
imagine having this with a nice taco.
This is probably why I
Cheers.
haven't
Nice
tried it, because
pastor
I
taco.
don't generally, beer with lime and salt is not really my thing.
right, because this does have lime and salt in it. But
I'm loving it.
I'm telling you right off the bat, this is not Bud Light lime, my friend.
I'm gonna.
Which doesn't taste like lime at all. It tastes like lemon. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's.
It tastes like lemon pledge. I'm sorry.
Teach you something Mexican.
Yes.
Arriba,
Arriba.
Arriba.
abajo,
Abajo.
Abajo.
al centro,
El centro.
centro.
adentro.
Adentro.
Oh.
Now, I actually learned that toast when I was on the island of Cuervo Nation, which is something I got to do back in the 90s, and they would offer that toast when we drank a whole lot of tequila. And even though that was in my very early days with tequila, I enjoyed tequila, but it was after I got home from that trip, and I had made friends with a lot of the people that worked for Jose Cuervo that were there on the island, that I got an invitation to, I lived in Boston at the time, got an invitation to a tequila tasting that they did in Boston at this old church that had been converted into a theater. And that was where I went and tasted for the first time the Reserva de la Familia
my
from
favorite.
Cuervo. And, I can point out several pivotal moments where I would say my life changed. That was one of them. That was one of them. That was when I went, oh, wow, there's more to tequila than I knew. And that's what started my journey into trying to learn more about tequila and why it became my favorite of the spirits. But anyway, I love that. I haven't done that toast in a long time. So
Yeah.
that's so
That's
great.
how you have me spoiled. I
Yeah.
have very expensive taste in tequila due to my father-in-law.
Does anybody remember Gator gum?
Gator
It
gum.
was like the Gatorade gum that would like.
Oh yes, I do.
make
I
your
don't.
mouth
I don't know. I remember it
gush watering.
existing. I
Yeah,
don't
it
think
was
I
like
ever.
sport gum that would
Yeah,
make
it would
your
like make your mouth water.
saliva glands go absolutely nuts. This kind of tastes like someone dropped one of those in my beer.
I have to say,
It tastes a lot of like it has a lot of lemon.
I have to say, I really like this. I more than I had expected to. I'm always a little.
I love you guys, Eureka Heights, but I'm not buying this beer.
I always am a little suspect of the salt and lime type beers. Although I will just say, the Salty Lady from Martin House.
Fantastic.
That's a wonderful beer.
Fantastic.
That is just it's a goza,
I,
but it's got
I second that.
that
notion.
little
It's
bit of
really
sour,
great.
though, I think helps with that. This to me is, I don't know, this is one of those beers that could also be situational, you know? Like sitting out by a pool, maybe.
I don't remember.
I don't know if I
remember,
can justify it. I'm not a fan of it.
I don't remember the brewery. Maybe it was 11 Below, but you brought in to the show once a beer called Taco Tuesday, which
Yeah.
I love the name of, but I wasn't crazy about the beer. This I like better than that.
I don't think I really enjoyed Taco Tuesday all that much either.
It was a margarita-inspired
yeah, it was
beer, as I
interesting, but it
recall.
was
This is
not-
not that. This is more
No,
just
this is very different, yeah.
a very salt and lime
I guess
beer,
to the
but-
contrary, I'm a huge fan of this beer.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's delicious.
Yeah, I like it too, and
It's
you know,
so
with
refreshing.
summer coming on,
Yes.
this would be a wonderful
That
summer
this is
beer.
a
Poolside beer.
hanging out
No
beer
question.
all the
See,
way.
you know,
It's so
sitting
good
around
and
the pool,
refreshing.
I don't mind having a big frothy glass of, Dirty Bastard.
See,
Or-
but you are unique though. You got to admit that, because you'll be on an inner tube floating down the Frio River
Drinking
and
a barley
enjoying
wine. I got no
wine.
problems with that.
Seriously.
So,
And
yeah.
you drink 12% beers like they're 5% beers.
Exactly.
So-
That's exactly right. I want to very quickly pass along a story. Liliana actually had forwarded this to us a couple of weeks ago about a kindergarten student in Michigan who apparently brought tequila to school and shared it with the other kindergartners. And
you
it's like
Stop.
so I'll just say, first of all, don't do that. That's not cool.
Is this a drinking news story?
Yeah, no. Well,
Seriously,
I
pull out the
think
ukulele.
I think when Liliana sent it, she thought we might use it for drinking news, but I couldn't find a way to make it funny. It was, I mean,
it's inherently funny, but it's not.
Yes,
No,
yeah,
I know,
but
it's a serious
yeah, it really
story.
is.
My
Oh
older
my
brother got called down to the office one time because mom made a rum cake and he went to school with it.
Oh, it got in trouble for the rum
he
cake.
had rum cake and it smelled like alcohol. Of course, she does put a bunch of rum in the rum cake, but I'm pretty sure the alcohol.
Is there any other way?
The best, the best part of this story was when it was a young girl that brought this to the kindergarten, right? And the best part of the story was when they called her mother. The mother, of course, like as you would expect her to, said, "Is my daughter okay?" And the teacher said, "She's right here and she looks okay." And then the mother said, "Okay, well, how much did she drink?" So I guess
That is a respectable response.
yeah. So it was. It was definitely a lapse in something that was allowed
Can
to
she
happen.
handle her liquor?
Right? Yeah, she learned early. Yeah.
You gotta teach 'em young.
Well, anyway, I thought that was a very interesting. I started to say a great story, and then that sounds so wrong to say. So
I do want to point out that this beer does play nice with the last mezcal.
with the last mezcal, really, this is the Nucano. Very interesting. All right, is there any more of that beer left?
Yes.
Pour me a little and let me try that. That's good. That's good. Just a taste.
I just tried my last sip of that mezcal after having that. It actually plays really nice.
All right, I'm going to check that out while we take a quick break. We will be back. Still a lot to talk about, including the winners of Tequila, I started to say.
Tequila.
That's mezcal and tequila combined. That's
Mezquila.
mezquila. The winners for mezcal and tequila at the San Francisco International Spirit Awards. We'll talk about that. And, of course, we're not that far away now from the actual drinking news. Stand by. It's Smoking and Toasting. Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, nice.
Everyone's favorite pop.
Welcome back. It is Smoking and Toasting. We are the program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are drinking some fine spirits today. I can tell you that. It's Cinco de Mayo. Liliana has brought Mezcals and other Agave Spirits, and we're going to do some more sampling here. I will tell you that, speaking of these type of spirits, basically the Oscars of booze is the San Francisco World Spirits Competition. It happens every year. It only started in 2000. I didn't realize it was that young, but it started in 2000, and it's the longest running spirits competition in North America and the largest of its kind anywhere. Judges award bronze, silver, and gold medals through a multi-day blind tasting process. How do I sign up for that job?
Yeah, right.
With the coveted double gold, referring to entries that receive a gold medal rating by every single member of the panel. So you can get a gold if your scores average out to be high enough to be a gold. But to get a double gold, every single person on the panel has to give you the gold thumbs up.
Wow.
So that's a pretty cool spirit. For the Agave Spirits categories this year, there were 111 Blancos, 91 Reposados, 69 Añejos, 31 Extra Añejos, and 20 flavored tequilas, and 102 entries for Mezcal. So right away, there were more mezcals entered into this competition than the reposados or the añejos or the extra añejos, which is tells you a little something about how much mezcal is exploding right now as a spirit.
Huge popular.
All right, so let me tell you what they awarded for the Blanco category, which is the unaged tequila. Tequila Ocho Blanco, Certeza Blanco. I don't think I've had that. Have you ever had
No.
Certeza? I've had Tequila Ocho, but I don't think it was the Blanco. I think I had a different aging of that. El Tequiliano Platinum, Serpiente Blanco, and Caya de Oro. Those were the Blancos that were awarded the gold. In the Reposado category, there were 3. Don Nacho Extra Premium Reposado, Cinco Reposado,
I've had that one.
and Lobos 1707
And I've had that one too.
Only had Cinco.
Only had Cinco. Is it good? Is it
Yeah.
worthy of this kind of an award?
It's
She's
really good.
She agrees with me.
That one, I had the 17-0. I think it was the 1707.
1707?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had that one as well, and it's really good.
And in the Reposado, I've discovered that when I'm in the store buying tequila, I'm a little bit of a tequila snob. I have a tendency to move past the Blancos and Reposados most of the time and go for the Añejos. I just like that extra aging. But there are some really, really fine Reposados. I'll admit, I buy the big jug of El Amo Reposado to make margaritas with. That's my favorite tequila for margaritas.
Yeah.
And plus, you can get it at a really reasonable price. And the big jug lasts a while because we can put down some margaritas at my house. But in the Añejo category, 3 winners here. Black Sheep Añejo, which I don't think I've ever even
I don't
seen.
think I've had that.
Don Julio 70 Añejo
Yeah.
Claro.
I've had that.
I have had that. It's wonderful. I don't have a
is.
bottle of it. And Siempre Añejo.
Yep, I've
Now,
had that too.
I haven't had the Siempre Añejo, but I will say I've had their Blanco, and it's wonderful for an unaged tequila. Just
What I couldn't understand is why they decided to make añejos now look clear.
see
It-
that.
it-
Yeah,
That's
the
it's very
Cristalinos, right?
misleading because that's how this bottle
Yeah.
is. Like you
Right.
see it and you're
I
just
don't
like,
understand.
are
Yeah.
you sure this isn't mislabeled?
No, you're
The way it
100%
looks.
right, and that is a real trend though in tequila.
There was a
is the
trend in the
Cristalinos.
early '90s where everything had to be clear, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Like and everything had to be clear
Like
and then a
Pepsi?
gel. Yes.
Pepsi. Thankfully, I don't think they ever came out with a Pepsi gel. That sounds disgusting.
Oh my gosh.
In the extra añejo category, extra añejo Califino, Rancho Sierra Mar, and Estrello extra añejo. I have not had any of those three.
I've had
Yeah.
the Rancho, and it's really
You
good
have?
too. It's a high price
Okay.
point, but it's really good.
She's
just-
ahead of us.
I'm just going to say, I'm a little jealous. I thought you'd come to my house to drink tequila.
You started this. It's just greatly.
It's true.
It's just evolved.
You made me.
Exactly. You started this, and it's just evolved.
All right, so here are the mezcals that were awarded the gold. Los Vecinos del Campo, Montelobos, Mezcal Vago, Magia, thank you, La Luna, and Raumen. Any of those you're familiar with? No? Okay.
No.
There's so many out there.
Yeah.
And there's so many popping up too. Like
Yes.
it's such a new market, I think.
About 70 new brands are showing up
Wow.
in the
I
U.S.
feel like
we still
Mezcal's
don't have
totally
all of
the
them.
new thing.
And I
Wow.
will mention something in
I,
next.
and I will say at the big specs where I like to shop, which is down in Midtown on Smith Street here in Houston, which is one of
That's
the
a good specs.
bigger. It was one of the bigger spirit stores I've ever been in.
You ever
Their
get a
wine
sandwich from their deli
Oh
there?
my God, it's incredible! Yeah,
so
it's
good.
incredible. And their wine selection is the greatest thing
I
I've
need to
ever
put
seen.
that in my back
it's
pocket.
Unbelievable, unbelievable. But when I go there to shop for tequila, I go to the aisle they call Mexico Way, and it used to be that one side of that aisle was all tequila, the other side was a little bit of mezcal, and then think mixers for margaritas and stuff. Now, when you go down Mexico Way at my favorite specs, one half of the left side of the aisle, all the way to the middle of it, is all mezcal now.
Yeah.
And then tequila is now the second half of that and the entirety of the other side. So that's how much tequila and mezcal have exploded in terms of what's available and what's out there. And I kind of go in, and it really is the kid in the candy store with me, because my eyes kind of glaze over.
The
and I'm
market's
like,
changing a little bit. Like you
Yeah.
see that larger mezcal and tequila section in most places. People are buying that. There's in a lot of places around here, they have if they have a big whiskey selection, they'll have a Texas whiskey section.
right,
too.
absolutely right.
They
And-
can be pretty substantial.
And the same specs, one whole aisle, both sides of their beer section,
Yeah.
is not just Texas, but actually it
Local.
is Texas. It
Yeah.
starts local, and then it does other Texas cities. But that there's just a huge amount of distilling and brewing that's happening in every region. And sometimes when I'm on the web looking for things that we might want to talk about on this show, you'll see stories from cities that you would have no idea have a huge craft beer or distilling scene. It's really kind of crazy. So anyway, congratulations to the winners. You can find the article that I cited at a website called InsideHook.com if you want to go and take a look at that and try some of these tequilas or mezcals for yourself. So tell me about what we're trying here, Liliana.
Okay, excellent. This is another drink. It's not called mezcal. It's called raicilla.
Raicilla.
Raicilla
Can
is
I point out one thing real quick? This
Yes.
has almost a vinegary kind of nose to it.
That sort of
So
sharp.
it's interesting that you said, because it's so different on the nose than the others. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It started as a mezcal years ago, 500 years ago. But in the 1700s, the Spanish crown started imposing a lot of taxes on villages. And this particular drink, raicilla, is made in the Sierra Occidental Sierra of Jalisco. And the agave is called Agave Maximiliana. Interestingly, the natives just changed the name. They started calling it raicilla. But it was a mezcal at one point a long time ago.
And isn't correct me if I'm not getting this right, but mezcal is a broader name for agave spirits, right?
Yes.
So technically, it would still be a mezcal, but they are calling it raicilla.
And now that is what it's known for. It has a lot of wonderful information on the bottle. It tells you the type of agave, the state, the region. The oven they use is above ground. This is another slight difference. It's
interesting,
made of
'cause-
adobe.
Yeah, because you were saying that normally for mezcal, it's a hole
under.
in the ground with rocks. Yeah.
And then they use black oak as fuel. Fermentation, they do it in oak vats. The yeast that they use is a wild type, it's not commercial. And the steel is a stainless steel alembic. Interestingly, it's a hybrid steel that was made between the Filipinos and the Egyptians.
Huh.
That's
Now-
another
So in the
difference.
overall process of like distilling, fermentation, is that different than what they do with traditional mezcal? Like, so why is it so? It has a
It's
completely
completely
different. Is it
different.
completely
It's
different? Like a different
plant.
night?
It's a different plant, and the cooking takes place above ground. And again, but this was originally a mezcal. It's
Okay.
now that it's called.
Can I just say,
Please.
cookie dough with black pepper?
Which doesn't seem like a good combination, but it
this
is.
so bizarrely good. Like I get cookie dough on it and some chocolate and black pepper.
Yes,
and
I totally get what you're saying. Liliana, let me ask you this.
lime.
You want to show it? It's called La Venenosa, the poisonous.
La Venenosa, the
And let me
poisonous.
tell you an interesting.
There's like sweet lime in there. Almost.
I know.
It's like,
That's why it's like you get like sweet, like almost like like cookie dough, milk chocolate, but then you have that really
And-
pungent citrus in the aftertaste.
In their website, they actually have a warning. It says, "Drink La Venenosa among friends that you trust."
I think that would be a good warning for any spirit, but I totally get it. Now, so let me ask you this. All of this information that you just gave us on this is fascinating. Did you discover that information and then seek out the spirit? Or did you look at it, say, this looks interesting, and then do research on it after the fact?
No. Last year or the year before, because I remember I began to take the course to become a special
Yes, I know.
catador for tequilas.
I know, it's
I
exciting.
started looking at different information sources, and I saw some videos, and some people in Guadalajara were presenting some different spirits, and I took notes. So in addition to raicilla, there's another one that I can find in the United States. But by the way, raicilla is $68.
it's like this is so fascinating to me. It's like cookie dough with chocolate and lime, and there's a saltiness to it, and it's just such an incredibly interesting. I've never had anything like this.
And to be honest, when you say that, it doesn't sound like it would
And
be that
black
good.
pepper on the finish.
But it
But
works.
it is delicious.
It works.
really
It
is.
sounds actually
It's
like
also-
a
stronger
totally
than the
not a good
others.
combo.
I was just about to say, it may be, but it doesn't come across that way. Comes across smoother, like it's not as strong as the others. I know in spirits, smooth is not necessarily a good word, but it goes down a bit easier than the other two that we've had, I think.
And I feel like as we keep going down the line, they're getting less and less smoky on the nose and in the taste.
Well, yes, definitely the smokiest one we
Was
had
the first one.
was the first one.
I'd be
yes.
interested to revisit that at the end of the show and see if that smokiness still stands up, because
Ian,
it could be palate shock too.
Yeah.
but-
If you just want more mezcal, I'm sure that Liliana will let you have
Yes.
some.
Everything for my
it's
friends.
Cinco de Mayo we're sharing
And this
today.
particular brand of raicilla was created by a chef called Esteban Morales, and it's a little, town again in the on the coast. No, not on the coast. I'm sorry, on the Sierra Madre Occidental of Jalisco. So there's so many wonderful things. Can I mention the one I couldn't find just to?
Sure.
Okay.
We'll
There's
be on the lookout for it.
and the other one to look for is called Bacanora.
Bacanora.
Bacanora is the traditional drink of the state of Sonora, and it's made with Agave Pacifica.
Does the name's similarity to the word bacanal mean something? Is that on purpose?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
And this is again another old drink, but in November 2000 received a denomination of origin. That means that only the state of Sonora can make Bacanora. I saw it on the web, but it's not available in the U.S. So that's something to look for. The agave takes about 8 years, the Agave Pacifica, 8 years to mature. And they also use an underground oven, like some of the mezcal. And they use river water.
River water.
For the fermentation. And,
Oh, wow.
So, and it is twice distilled. So
It's the three that we have tasted so far, and this is what I find so interesting because I wouldn't necessarily have thought this coming in, are all so very different from each other.
Different.
You know, and that's just fascinating to me because you do find that with tequilas, although I think you find probably more similarities than you do differences.
Yeah.
But here, the differences are just like wild.
You can, however, kind of taste the family resemblance, so to
Oh,
speak.
it's agave. There's
You
no
can tell-
question
you
about
can tell
it.
it's
Yeah.
all coming from the same idea, but it's vastly reimagined in every case.
Can I just say what a wonderful idea it is? It's a really wonderful idea.
Yep.
This
Tequilas,
idea.
I feel like they're brothers and sisters, but mezcals, I feel like they're like second and third cousins.
Second and third cousins. And some of them are a little weird, but you like having
Exactly.
them around anyway, right?
Now, let me tell
Exactly.
you something. There is a concern. We're talking about this abundance of drinks based on tequila plants that the plants, they use these plantations and they clone the same plant over and over and over and over. But now some plants have the defects and genetic
Right, from this
defects.
whole process,
So
yeah.
one thing that Mexico is encouraging now is that they leave a high proportion of the plants untouched, let them reproduce.
And they take years to grow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
8 to 12 years. The pollinators are bats for the agave plants.
No kidding.
I
Yes.
would
So
not
See,
have
I've
thought
been-
that. That's crazy.
I've been so pissed off at bats since COVID-19, but now I'm going to have to rethink that if they're
Yes.
involved in the pollination of agave.
So they asking all these campesinos and the people who farm and create these lands with plantations to encourage diversity by letting some of the plants
Propagate. Yeah.
by
very-
themselves instead of just getting the little clones, the little pups
Right.
that grow underneath each agave. Because
I think though, when you have a small batch industry like some of these, I think that a lot of the people that drink these different expressions are probably going to be fine and even very accepting of the fact that each time you buy one, it might be slightly different.
Right.
It doesn't
Yes.
have to be the
It's
same.
the artisanal
because
nature
the
of it, right?
plants might be different, and as we're gonna talk a little bit later, some plants are just collected from the wild.
Yeah, and
So-
my thought is, if you want the same every single time, that the big companies are great at that. That's what they do.
Right. Their consistency.
But
You're right.
one of the reasons you go to a spirit like this is to get those variations.
We're seeing a little bit of that in the cigar world as well. You're
Yeah.
seeing more and more companies releasing these very limited releases of a particular cigar, and they use a very specific tobacco that was only available in a certain quantity, and that's why there's not more of it. That's why it was so exciting when Oliva decided they were going to put out more of that
that
the
new
Serie
shape,
V,
that Serie V.
that special release, because we were like, I figured they'd probably used up all the tobacco already. So it was nice to know they had some of it left. But, farming is one of those things where art and science really do intersect. And so is obviously distilling and brewing and blending of cigars. There's a lot of science involved, but there's also a certain art to being able to do it. And when art is involved, things aren't always going to come out exactly the same every time, and that's just part of the.
But that's part of the
process.
celebration. you
And
see.
that's okay.
It's part of what makes it
so makes
wonderful.
it unique.
Yeah.
And let me tell you one other category for mezcals. We talk artisanals, right? There's one category called ancient.
Ancient.
And that's going to be given to a factory or a little mom and pop operation that has had it for at least 5 generations, and they still don't use any automation, that everything's, And so that's one. Then you have other mezcals that we're not going to taste here. We have 3 types. The minero, which is the one that comes out of the distillation process, is nothing else except whatever flavors were created with the cooking and all that. You have the curados. That's an interesting thing I saw in Oaxaca. Sometimes the last step, which is for the distillation on the still, on top of it, they wire a chicken breast, a turkey breast, or a piece of a rabbit, so that when the mezcal is evaporates with the heat and then turns into a liquid again in the distillation process, it has a different flavor. They call
Of course
curado,
it would, yeah.
curado de pollo, curado de pavo, which is turkey. And then there's a third classification. They call them avocados, like avocado, but with B as in not as in boy.
Avocado. Avocado
means they add herbs, fruits, seeds, and something.
So they do the same thing
else.
where they let it pass through the.
Yeah.
That's incredibly
I haven't
cool.
seen any of those here.
One of the things I love about Mexico is that if there's a little mom and pop operation that's distilling, an agave spirit, chances are it's going to be fabulous. As opposed to here in the U.S., if your cousin Clem has his own little distillery out in the back of the barn, chances are that's not going to be fabulous.
I've tasted a few of those.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's real bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's only bad.
Right.
Sometimes it's
Sometimes
real
it's
bad.
real bad, exactly. And that was what kept me from home brewing for so long, because the first few people I knew that did home brewing and offered me a chance to taste their wares, it was not good. It was not good at all. But there is some great work being done by home brewers now. And so I still admire you for being able to do that.
Is the general term moonshine for all those operations here?
That's
in
what
the
I
US?
call it. Yeah, that's what I call it. Moonshine.
Yeah, if you're making it in your backyard, we can just call it moonshining.
Yeah, absolutely. This is absolutely not moonshine. This is from a brewery just a little to the north of us
This
here
is from
in
Southern
Conroe, Texas.
Star in
Yeah.
Conroe, Texas. And this is the Metzli.
This is a
Pecan
pecan stout.
Ooh.
I'm used to pecan porters, but pecan stout's a different,
This is,
a
I
different thing.
assume. I mean, the artwork on here is very cool as well.
Yeah, very
It's-
much.
it's like, the Tin
in line
Man.
for Cinco de Mayo.
It's like the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz, and then done with a very Mexican style.
Yeah, compare if that's the same god that we saw here
Back over here, is it the same guy?
On Ucano.
It looks like
They
they're
kinda look like
related
they
at
are.
the very least.
Oh, it's very similar. Yeah, here.
You found your fourth cousin.
Yeah, no, they're different.
Yeah. Same kind of energy and vibe
style.
to them.
But
yeah.
remember, the main goddess for mezcal is a female. Her name is Mayo-The.
Mayo-The?
Mayo-The.
All
And
one
she,
word?
She was the mother of 400 drunk rabbits, and and the rabbits will come from the moon to the earth to inject their wonderful liquid inside the agave plants.
Boy, that would be the grandmother you would want to hang out with. You know what I mean?
She had
That was a hell of a
400 drunk.
I thought my college experience was crazy. Oh man. Well, this is quite good. More understated than I expected. Your thoughts, Ian?
I like it. It's more bitter than I expected it to be.
Yeah. Well, pecans can be very bitter.
Yes, and very astringent, especially if you get a little piece of the shell in there with it, or that little fibrous stuff that goes between the pecans themselves.
What do you think, Brianna? Does this work for you?
I would never buy this.
Okay.
Me neither.
Yeah.
It wasn't what I was expecting, I think. I wanted it to be a little more full-bodied.
Right.
The bitterness is like really, really intense. I don't even really catch any of the pecan.
So the pecan,
It's
more-
misleading.
It's
take
more on the
a
aftertaste.
deep breath, take a sip of that,
It has a lot
and
of
then gently breathe out of your nose after you take a sip.
Okay.
it
after
has
you
a lot
swallow.
of sediment.
Yes,
Why?
yes, it does. It's just unfiltered. So it's no big deal. It's just unfiltered.
Okay, I
So
can see it there.
the
I can
pecan
see
in this,
there.
it occurs to me, is not pecan pie. Like we're
Right,
in
it's not
Texas.
a
Let's
sweet-
face it. If I say pecan, you're thinking of two things. You're thinking of either roasted salted pecans or the chocolate covered roasted salted ones that you get at Buc-ee's.
Which are awesome.
Which
by
are
the way.
amazing. Best thing that's ever been invented.
I think you could start a religion around those.
Got some of those in my fridge. Or you're thinking pecan pie, and you're thinking that real pecan sweetness. And this
With
is
the
neither
molasses,
of those
yeah.
things. This is dry, like fresh shelled pecan.
It reminds me, when I was a kid, we had pecan trees on our property where I grew up.
Yeah.
And I would help my mom, harvest them once they fell off the trees. And then she would sit in the kitchen and crack the pecans and put them away so that we could have them, during the winter and all that stuff. And this flavor reminds me of what that smelled like
fresh
when
cracked
she
pecan,
was
which is
in the kitchen
very
doing
different
those
from a
pecans.
roasted pecan.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
First
yeah.
off, that meat has kind of a young green
Mm-hmm.
kind of flavor and some astringency to it. And this, I think, is going more towards that than it is going towards our traditional stop out of road and get some roasted pecans.
Now,
Which, by
I
the
was-
way, in the rest
Yeah.
of the country, I don't think you can do that.
I
but
think
around
that's
here,
where I'm getting
you
it
should
from.
stop.
I was expecting more like the 512 pecan porter, and
Right,
this
which
is
is
not.
sweet
That's what
and
I
thicker.
was. That's what I was expecting immediately,
And
and,
by
it's
the way,
so bitter, and it's
for-
nothing like
For
that.
anyone who has never tried that, that is an amazing beer. We've had it on the show
Did we
before.
do the double pecan on the show?
Yes, the one that came in the big bottle.
Oh, my God.
Baby, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Baby, that's good stuff. Yes. All right. Well, I'm pretty impressed with everything that we've tasted so far, and we have a little more to go. We have what is in this blue bottle, Liliana, that we'll get to in the next segment.
Oh, we have a lot of stories to tell.
I
This
love
is,
stories.
Texas Sotol.
Texas Sotol. So you can actually do agave spirits not in Mexico. You can't do tequila, right?
Well, you cannot do tequila, you cannot do mezcal, and you cannot do sotol. So I don't know, but I'll tell you the story.
All right. I
And
can't
it
wait.
might be to just be to have peace and not to start a revolution. In fact, Texas was part of Mexico so
That's
many
true.
years so.
That's
I
true.
don't
Maybe
see
this is a peace offering
Uh-huh.
between the two areas. You know?
You want me to get started?
No, actually,
No.
we'll do it in the next segment.
That's
And
the next segment.
Ian's going to open it up while we take a break. We'll be back with drinking news and drinking Sotol
Okay.
coming up on Smoking and Toasting.
Sure.
When I point at you during Ian's song, can you say, I had to take my gator
To the vet.
All right.
I know that by
She knows
memory.
it. Okay.
I watch you guys, and then my husband is so into it that he likes
I
to
haven't-
watch the show with me.
I haven't discovered which episode I'm on. I know you did it for me. You were like, Brie, I need to record you. And I was like, okay. You're like, say, I need to take my gator to the vet. And I was like, what? And you're like, just say it. I'm like, okay.
Welcome back into Smoking and Toasting, show number 281. That has us officially halfway to 300.
That's right.
Yeah, and we're thrilled to be there. We'll be working on some big plans for our 300th episode. And before we even get there, we're going to do a Smoking and Toasting special at Alan Denny's house. So I'm looking forward to that, too.
Ooh.
Yeah, a lot of good things to come here. We appreciate you guys being with us for Cinco de Mayo as we talk about agave spirits, Mexican spirits, drink some interesting beers, and, of course, no edition of Smoking and Toasting these days would be complete without this segment called Drinking News.
Drinking news, drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. Drinking news, drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. A Florida man with one arm said he had a gator for a pet. When asked about his absent arm, he said,
I had to take the gator to the vet.
Drinking news, drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news.
Cheers, y'all. And okay, that was my favorite guest gator line. That was awesome. Well, here at Drinking News, we do our best to cover the weird and unusual things that happen around our country and around the world. But we are, despite what you might think by our high-tech Drinking News theme song and handsome announcer, not exactly working with a large budget here. If we were, I'd love to get our own Drinking News helicopter. In addition to making it easier for us to cover stories as they happen, it'd be kind of fun just to buzz the houses of people like our own tobacco expert Alan Denny and get close enough so we could read the big drinking news painted on the side of the chopper. That'd be bitching. But lack of budget isn't the only thing that stops us from getting a helicopter. There's the additional fact that I do not know how to fly one. And
they're very complicated.
Yeah, and I try to make it a policy not to spend a buttload of money on things that I don't know how to use unless they're, really easy to learn. So that same reasoning doesn't seem to apply to everyone. However, a Florida man.
Wait.
We already know this is going to be good.
A Florida man recently spent $704,000 at an auction.
I wish I had one of those.
To purchase a 2006 Heritage Edition Ford GT supercar, complete with racing stripes and racing numbers on the doors, and he set about driving it around his community in Boca Raton. Now, if you've got $704,000, I suppose you should be allowed to spend it on anything that you want to. Right. You could spend it on 21 days in a presidential suite at the Hotel Cala de Volpine in beautiful Costa... I have trouble with this word. Costa Smeralda in Uruguay. You could buy at least 7 rare Pokemon cards. You could rent the Quasi Amusement Park in Middlebury, Connecticut for a week, just for you and your friends. You could even hire your own personal on-call chef for the next 7 years, or have lunch with 4 or 5 of your favorite politicians. That's, of course, assuming that you have 4 or 5 favorite politicians.
I was going to say, put an asterisk on that.
Good luck with that. But Florida resident Robert J. Guarini, who is 50 years old, spent his $704,000 on a beautiful street-legal racing car. And as you might guess, there was one glaring problem. The 2006 Heritage Edition Ford GT supercar has a standard transmission, and this particular Florida man did not know how to drive a stick shift.
Oh.
You see this coming, right?
That's unfortunate.
Guarini told police that he lost control after downshifting while leaving his housing development around 6 p.m. one evening last week. A police report says this naturally led to a head-on collision with a palm tree. I'm sorry, there's not pine trees in Florida. Palm tree. Though the police report says that Guarini told officers the crash was caused by inexperience with the manual transmission, the Ford GT owner told Rodent Track over the phone that there was more to this event. Guarini claims old tires, muddy pavement, and a fresh detailing were all factors causing the 550 horsepower supercar to swing out and hit a tree. The driver also told Road and Track that the crash occurred as he shifted up into second gear from first, not while downshifting like the official report says. I don't want people to think I was racing at 90 miles per hour, Guarini says. I was going 35 miles per hour. From the police report, it's actually unclear if speed played a role in the crash. The police, the photos that we're showing, rather, indicates that while the damage is limited to the front third of the car, the hit was substantial enough that it triggered multiple airbags, disabled the vehicle, and caused the GT to slide far enough after hitting the tree that it actually blocked a nearby sidewalk. Guarini was issued a citation for driving with a suspended license and a warning for operating an unregistered vehicle. The 50-year-old claims that his license suspension was due to an unrelated Department of Motor Vehicles clerical error, which I'm sure is totally true. So, let today's Florida man story be a cautionary tale, my friends. Spend your money wisely. maybe set aside a few extra bucks to pay someone to teach you how to drive a stick shift in a case like this. And even then, here at Drinking News, we can offer some very, very good advice regarding a special feature of cars like the 2006 Heritage Edition Ford GT. It has a manual transmission, of course, and you may already be familiar with some of the special features of the engine, but allow us to call your attention to a special lever that you may be able to use to help you if you are, shall we say, careening towards a large palm tree. I've always wanted to use the word careening in a Drinking News story. You know, if careening is involved, the end is never good.
Today was your day.
But there's a special lever that you may want to look for. It's located on the driver's side floorboard, and it's next to the accelerator. It's called a brake. Learn it, know how to use it. It could save an innocent palm tree one day.
Its primary function is deceleration.
Reporting from Florida, where airbags have been deployed. My name is Cruze, and that is your
Drinking News, Drinking News. That's our time for Drinking News.
Cheers, y'all. All right, thank you for being a part of that. We appreciate it. I continue to marvel at how Drinking News is the most popular segment of the program. I don't understand it at all, but some things we're probably not.
It's all about the song.
I think it
Really,
is.
that's what does
I
it.
do think that it is. Our high-tech Drinking News song.
You know, I would like to say hello to two special people. Can I do
Please
that?
do, yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, the first hello goes to our friend Bruce Stark. He's a wonderful
Stark.
friend. Yes, we became friends now on Facebook, and I
He's
love
awesome.
his posting about her new kitty cat. And, you know, I love cats. So, hello, Bruce. And the second special person I want to say hello to, who is your fan too and watches the show every week, is my husband, Mike Craycraft.
Oh, that's awesome.
Cheers to you.
I
all.
love
Cheers,
that.
yes.
Cheers to you
Absolutely.
guys.
And Bruce, we are always honored to have you watching and chiming in on the comments. Even though I understand Facebook now charges you like special stars or something to comment on.
Yeah, it's very bizarre.
Like, you know, the real problem that we're facing in this country is that Mark Zuckerberg isn't rich enough.
That's right.
You know?
Neither is Bill Gates, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. Well, he's a lot less rich than he used to be.
Yeah.
About halfway so.
And Elon just pulled out a lot of money to buy Twitter.
Yeah. The world's richest are, just getting richer.
This smells like dirt
all right.
in the best way possible.
So let me ask you,
Okay.
Liliana, before we partake, what makes a beverage a sotol as opposed to a mezcal or a
Very
tequila?
good question. The plant that is made from it used to be classified as an agave, but with new taxonomy, the name didn't change, but now they're not agaves. They're on the Nolinaceae family.
So it's the
So
same plant
it's
as before, but now that we've got so many different iterations and we know
Yeah.
so much more about it, this has been reclassified.
Yes, this plant is called Daisylirion, and in Mexico there is a Daisylirion weberi or desert spoon. And this particular drink, sotol, is the state drink for 3 states in Mexico: Chihuahua, and then there's also Coahuila and Durango.
Okay.
So-
and it's the state drink of those 3 states.
The states. But interestingly, a few years ago, there were 3 students at UT Austin pursuing a master's in business administration. So they had to come up with a project that could be sustainable, and then they had to find sponsors to make it, the whole process. Well, they selected sotol. Let's make sotol. But they use a different plant. It's called Daisylirion texanum. It's slightly different. And interestingly, they won, the first place in class.
Nice.
And then they started their company in Driftwood, Texas.
And so that's
There-
what this sotol is.
Yes,
Desert
Texas.
Door, Texas Sotol.
Texas sotol.
Handmade in Driftwood, Texas.
Yeah. Very
Making
interesting
more off of this than their NBA jobs.
peculiarities about this drink. They don't have a plantation. They collect the plants from the wild. The Daisylirion,
Interesting.
yes. And
And
another,
where does this plant grow in the wild?
In Chihuahua.
Okay, in the states that you mentioned,
and
right?
also in Texas.
Also in Texas.
Also
okay.
in Texas. So the plants are wild harvested. And then another interesting thing about the sotols, the sotol plants, is that they use only 3/4 of the piña to make the steel product. They save a quarter and then they replant it.
So you can replant just a quarter of the piña,
Of the piña, and
it will
grow a new plant.
Ah,
Like a lot of cactus are like that. If
right,
you break
right.
off a
And
chunk
you're
of it.
you're a cactus aficionado, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I have been a member of the Houston Cactus and Succulent Society since 1990, and
Wow.
also I belong to the Cactus Society of America.
Wow, that's so
I'm gonna be
cool.
a speaker actually in Texas, in Austin, in October.
About cactus.
Well, no, we're gonna talk about this, but it's gonna be with PowerPoint
That's
and a lot
awesome.
of details.
I
about
feel
the
like I'm
plant.
sitting with a
And I
celebrity.
talked to the guys. I talked to one correspondent to one of the guys
Seriously.
that owns
That made
the
this-
factory, and he said, "Welcome to visit us anytime. So if you're in
Wow.
San Antonio or Austin, and definitely I'm gonna go and
Nice.
visit these guys." Congratulations to them because they won a gold award in Denver in 2020
That's so great.
in an international spirits competition.
So,
Now,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
and again, we don't know the Mexican government or the councils or for Sotol, they haven't bothered them. And I guess that's all right. They call it Texas Sotol.
They do say Texas sotol.
Sotol.
Right, right.
I don't know. Maybe that's the reason.
Maybe the designation is enough.
Yeah.
Well,
When I put this to my nose, I want you to so here in Texas, especially in Houston, but you'll get this a lot in Texas. When you walk outside and it's bright sunshine, and it's a hot summer, bright sunshiny day, but it's raining.
Man,
While
like
it's
that-
bright sunshine, I'm
Yeah.
not joking. Like
Yeah,
this is
it
this is a
happens.
thing that happens quite often. And sometimes it'll be raining in the front yard and not in the backyard.
Right.
But it's
That's not
But
unique to your house,
on
by the way.
on a very hot summer day when the rain comes down and it hits the pavement and then it stops raining, you get this smell from the earth and that fresh rain and everything like that. When you put your nose in this,
yeah.
it's that smell,
Yep.
that very mineral, that very earth, that very
Lemongrass. That's the way
lemongrass.
some people have described it. And you know, Desert Spoon they make two different I forgot proof, 80 proof, which is what we're tasting, but they also have a 100 proof, and they age that I think for about a year.
I'm
Interesting.
super interested. This is super good too.
It really is, and I'm going to try to describe this without sounding ridiculous. It has two finishes. When you taste it, you get the initial taste, and then that middle of the palate, and then you swallow it, and you immediately get this finish, and then a few seconds later, you get another one. Are you experiencing that?
There's a little vanilla in the finish, a little sweetness that goes on there. That second finish, especially,
Almost like a vanilla and marshmallow.
it's incredibly interesting. This is.
Fascinating.
Remember when I said it smells like dirt in the best way possible? This is very earthy and very wonderful.
Yes, very very earthy, and I totally get the rainwater thing you were talking about. Rain on the pavement.
Two more pieces of information that are very interesting related to Sotol. It takes 15 years for the plant to be ready.
Wow.
And it takes one whole plant per bottle. So
Wow.
One whole
Wow.
plant per bottle, and 15 years until the plant is ready.
yes.
That's
Is
a
this
lot.
something that grows all over the place?
South Texas.
It grows
Yes.
rather plentiful.
Yeah, and the desert of Chihuahua, which part of it is in Mexico and part of it is in Texas. And the other thing is that this is not really expensive, an expensive drink. This was only $39.
Interesting. So, Liliana, you said
Wow.
that they harvest these from the wild.
Yes.
Does that mean that the flavor of this might vary from batch to
Also
batch?
depending where the conditions, but
Mm-hmm.
we probably can realize that the South Desert, it might be the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
The conditions and the
Fascinating, yeah.
rainfall. They
Right.
might be similar.
I'm sure it would have to be similar for the plants to grow, but there's going to be enough micro differences that I wonder how much it would change
The
the
substrate,
flavor
you
of
mean,
the
or
juice.
if they're growing on top of a rock or versus,
Right.
yeah.
Fascinating.
The ground.
I got to start growing
There's
agave.
almost a kiss of mint at the very end of this. Too.
Yes, I know what you mean. Very. It's every single spirit we have tried so far today has been radically different from the others. And to be honest, my expectations was the other way, that they would all have
Be
striking
similar.
similarities.
No.
And it's just everything has been so different, and it really is teaching me about the broad and fascinating world of all these spirits, because you're going to get a lot of different experiences from one to the other. You know, when you taste bourbons, for example, sure, they're different, but they all kind of taste like bourbon in a real
Yeah.
cohesive way.
Right.
These are so different. It's almost surprising they're all made from one form or another of agave. You know?
Yeah.
So can they be considered? So like just like me and Adam, we went to Big Ben, and where we were staying, we saw these huge agave plants. I mean, like huge. Can they make tequila here from them, or is it not considered tequila?
No,
because it's
they
not?
cannot
Yeah.
make tequila
Yeah.
because it's
Wow.
not agave tequilana.
You could
now,
you could make a spirit.
But you can't put the
Can't call it
label
tequila.
but
tequila on it.
Google desert spoon plant, the daisy lydion. It will look different than the agaves. The agaves, are so typical with all their like.
Yes, because we went because the where we stayed, the people there gave us a full history about Big Ben, the area, their property, the little cities and stuff nearby. And then Adam asked them, because Adam's like a huge plant guru. Like he would see something and be like, "Oh, this is a this and this and this plant." But he's like, "Oh, are these agaves?" And they're like, "Oh yeah," and they were huge. I've never seen one that big besides whenever we went to Mexico in Zihuatanejo, but it was beautiful. It definitely seems like a prime subject to make some tequila out of, but I guess it's not labeled tequila.
Yeah, Mexico has more than 200 different species of agaves.
Oh,
And it's
wow.
the country in the world that has the most.
When we were staying outside of Zihuatanejo, I was looking at all those agave plants, wondering, how can I get one of these back on the plane with me? How can I take one of these home? That would be so awesome.
I have some agaves at home.
Yeah?
Yeah, and
Are
I have an
are they
agave
difficult to
tequila.
grow?
No, they're not, but I had a beautiful weberi that it was large and gorgeous, but then they're prone to develop a weevil. It's that goes
The
underground
little-
and it rottens the
nobody likes
the
a
plants.
weevil.
Right now I have a tequilana growing in the front, but it doesn't look very good. We'll see.
Interesting. All right, we are going to take a break. No, we can't take a break yet because we haven't tried the beer.
No, we did.
No, we did try the beer.
No, no.
We're done with the beer. Have you been
No.
drinking, sir? We have one left on the last.
No, but we have the other beer. Did I hand you the monkey beer? And we
Oh,
tr-
you did.
He did.
Oh,
This beer.
That's what I was talking about.
Have I been drinking, sir?
Drinking.
I
sir.
think we all have been
I think we
drinking.
Do we have
all
any more
have been drinking.
cups left?
Yes, I will grab some for you right here. Stand by. And tell us about this beer while you open it.
Have I? Been
I'm
drinking?
right. You were on top of us.
The
Cruze.
Manhattan Project Beer Company. This is Wise Monkeys. It has the Speak No Evil monkey on the front.
Which I always thought was the coolest of the No Evil Monkeys. You know, he doesn't have his hands over his eyes or his ears. He can still take everything in. He just can't comment on it. You know, that's the Speak No Evil Monkey. So he's my favorite of the three. So this is a beer from a brewery in Dallas, Texas. It is called the Manhattan Project Beer Company. Of course, you guys all know what Manhattan Project means. But it is a very successful little brewery, and all of their cans have that kind of understated design like this one has, even though there's a monkey on it.
Yeah, they're very simplistic
Yeah.
covers.
Hard to be
Is that enough for us?
It's hard to be
For you
simplistic and monkey at the same time.
Median? I
But
think. Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
and then so we'll try this. We'll wrap up this segment. We'll come back for our short final segment, and in that one, I want to try this mezcal that you've had for
From 1994.
from 1994. I didn't know what mezcal was in 1994.
This smells so sweet and fruity.
So Ian, this is a Belgian Golden Strong Ale
Yes,
called
I love
Wise
those.
Monkeys. What else does it tell us about it?
It says Wise Monkeys is a Belgian Golden Strong that packs punch in a devilishly drinkable package. When you raise the glass to your nose, you will detect a bit of fermented stone fruit, specifically peach and pear. It also has a slightly perceptible sweetness with a semi-dry finish.
It is a very dry finish, almost like a remember like the Brut IPAs that came out for a while that had that super dry finish? The finish is similar to that, although the flavor is very different.
It has a slight champagne nose to it as well.
It certainly does. And the first thing on the palate I got was baking spice. But there's so much fruitiness and stuff in there as well.
I love this.
Yeah, I had a feeling you're a fan of the strong ale, are you not?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it
There
too.
are quite a few strong. This has got a little funk to the finish too that I
A little
absolutely
farmhouse
love.
funk, yeah, absolutely.
That's really nice, and it's got that that right next to the stone and the stone fruit, right next to the peach pit, or right next. It's got that kind of little bit of bitter to it that's interesting.
It's a very interesting. Like there's so much going on here. It's not a one or two note flavor. It's very complex.
My fingers smell a little bit like the Sotol, so I was getting confusing notes on my nose there for a minute there.
Yeah, we haven't been drinking water in between.
That's
drinks.
true. See, Liliana,
There's
you've got
water
to be
in
here.
this beer.
You've got to be
Yeah.
here to remind us of this.
I'm
But
going
yes,
again. So good.
I get a little hint of allspice. Is that what you were talking about? Yeah,
that's what I was saying. Like the baking spice
the
vibe
allspice.
that you get off of that. Yes, it's very
I
very
like it.
interesting.
I like
I
this one.
like it.
I like it too.
I like it too. And this is the first time I've ever tried this.
It's got. It doesn't actually taste like meat, but it has kind of a meaty kind of feel to the flavor. It's really interesting. It's really
it just
really
works
big in the mouth.
works
so
on
to
a
speak.
lot of different levels. Fascinating, good stuff.
Although it's not very viscous.
No, it's not as thick as you might expect.
It's light.
When I think of strong ales, I think of like Dirty Bastard and some of the things that are in that vein that are a little more viscous, but this one is a bit lighter.
It says it pairs well with peach pie, sea bass, and Gouda. I could see all that.
I could use that. I could see this being also like a marinade with the acidity in it too, and the flavors to kind of cut down the
Yeah.
fatty, to tenderize a nice like thick piece of
That
meat.
fruity aftertaste with
Yeah.
a little bitter to it is so good.
Yeah.
This, by the way, is 10%.
Yeah. That's why I saved it for last because it was
a big beer.
because it was the bigger one. But I will say this makes me want to go after the show and have some sea bass and some Gouda cheese and maybe top it off with a little of that peach pie. that
No,
they were
come on,
talking
we're
about.
in
Peach
Texas.
cobbler,
Pecan-
gotta have
pecan
peach
pie.
cobbler.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back for our final segment where we'll try one more mezcal before our day is over here. And I just have to say thank you for bringing all these wonderful spirits in.
thank
This has
you.
been, you said in an email, this was going to be an adventure, and
Yes.
that's exactly what it has been. Love it. We'll be right back. It's Smoking and Toasting.
Which not too many mezcals have it anymore.
I know. I'm like the bottle's full. I'm like I want the worm.
Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. This is a program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. It's show number 281. Two lovely special guests. Of course, our own producer's wife, Brianna Andrus, who's here. Brianna and I have enjoyed more tequila together than either of us should probably admit.
That is an absolute fact.
And then, of course, Liliana Rodriguez, our resident Agave Spirits expert. We are so thrilled to have you on the show. We haven't had you on since like before the pandemic, so it's been too long. And we're excited to have you back again.
I think I was here
Were
last
you
year.
Were you here last year?
Yeah, when we did the blind.
I was gonna say, was that when I
Oh,
was
when
on?
we
We
did-
did
when
the
we did the
blind
blind
tasting.
tasting.
Yes,
That was a
that's
lot
right.
of fun.
That was a lot of
That
fun.
was
What
amazing.
what I remember of it was very fun.
Ian and I had almost the same scores.
Very-
That's
Yeah,
right.
very
I remember, and
similar
Brianna
to-
and I had
Yes, we
similar
had the
scores.
same scores.
I do remember that now. You're
we
right,
have to
you're
do. We have to make that like a yearly thing.
Would you like to do the honors?
No, it's okay. You do.
This bottle that I'm about to open is from 95, you said?
It's right there. On
1994.
Oh, 1994.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Hasn't been
When I was just a
opened.
young
Worm
pup.
in the bottle. Now, I showed this worm earlier, but, just so you can get creeped out by it.
Yeah.
I think, like, the worm in the bottle is very much like when you go to a Korean restaurant and you order the fish and it comes out with the face looking at you. That freaks people out. Like, it doesn't bother me, but I always find it amusing when the table next
That's
to
a
me does
great
it.
analogy.
When they're
That's
like, "Ah!"
And they're like, I'm not sure about this.
No, remember I mentioned at the beginning of our session, it gives it authenticity, so it came from agaves. Some people
Because that-
think it shows you that it's a good mezcal because the worm hasn't disintegrated.
And because it looks like he had a great time before he kicked
Yeah.
it. So
This is special,
well,
you guys.
this is,
we gotta savor the flavor.
this particular worm, this caterpillar, is one that is found on agave plants. Is that right?
Yes, it's the moth of is the larvae of a beautiful moth. And remember that the worms are also cooked and serve
Right,
as a
right.
delicacy in
Right.
Oaxaca.
Oh, there's no question it's considered a delicacy. And in fact, I don't know if this makes it a delicacy, but, the whole folklore of the worm is that if you drink the
Yeah,
whole
ma-
bottle
okay.
and eat the worm, that you really accomplish something, which is probably what you accomplish is failing out of college. But it is what it is. So.
Can you pass me the bottle?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Ian, I want to mention a couple of interesting things.
So did you get this that long ago?
In Oaxaca.
In Oaxaca,
Yes.
okay.
This is Mezcal Matateco. It's a small town again in
Okay.
Oaxaca, but I look for it and I don't think it's in production anymore.
Well, one of
This
the-
is 80 proof, and it has an NOM also. So even back
right.
then, it was a regulated product. So it's good that an council or some entity is overseeing
Is
the whole
overseeing
process.
that to make sure the
Yeah.
quality
The
is
other
maintained.
thing that I love about this is that the drawings were made by a famous Oaxacan artist. He was a Zapotec Indian that became very famous, Francisco Toledo.
Ah.
There's wonderful paintings about him, and he died a few years
Really?
ago. And then it says in the back, the moon is habitated by a rabbit, whose function is elaborate a sacred elixir or liqueur that he deposits during the night in the heart of the agaves to obtain el mezcal. This mezcal will give long life to those who drink it.
I'm seeing a pattern with the rabbit thing. We had the woman, the goddess who was mother to all the rabbits. We had the other thing you were telling us where they would cook the rabbit over the mezcal when it was, and now you had the rabbit reference here. I don't know. Maybe mezcal is the great rabbit spirit.
I'm very
Cheers.
Perhaps. Cheers.
intrigued.
By
I
the way,
love
What do
Toledo.
you think? After
So
all
I want to
these
talk
years?
about the nose on this. This is, and I'm just going to go with that
smoky.
visceral gut feeling that I get with this. If you've ever been camping and you wake up the next morning with or without your hangover, that smell you get when the fire has gone out, and but you've got that old campfire
got that
smell
campfire
sitting
smell,
right
yeah.
next to it, because it has that smoky but also very earthy kind of smell.
Right.
This is very, very smoky and earthy right on the nose. It's beautiful, beautiful.
So this takes us back to more like what I would anticipate the notes would be, the smokiness that you would get from a mezcal.
I wonder if it has lost any of the original aroma.
Have you tried it?
No, I didn't try it back then. So
Have you tried it now?
My.
Still, it's still there.
I'm waiting to see the look on your face when you try it.
Oh my!
Yes.
It is.
This is delightful. 100% amazing.
I'm super impressed because I love art. Like, I love art. And Francisco Toledo is one of my favorite artists.
Oh, I have some of his books. And
Do you? Oh my gosh! And so that's why I'm even looking at it, and I'm just like, oh, Like I could obviously tell just by his style. But that's really interesting to see that he did the artwork for this bottle. I think that's really, really cool.
The Mexican culture is so rich with art, with literature, and obviously with spirits. I mean, it's
cuisine.
And cuisine. Oh my goodness, the cuisine.
Culture, dynamics, all of it all around.
And what's interesting is that here in Texas, we have a tendency to think of Mexican food as Tex-Mex. And don't get me wrong, Tex-Mex is one of the world's most amazing things.
It is fantastic.
that exists.
Absolutely.
It's wonderful. But there are so many great restaurants here in Houston, and I know around the rest of the state as well, that focus on a particular region of Mexico and the food that is native to that region. Very close to where I live is Xochi, which is
I love Xochi.
Wonderful restaurant, and it's
good.
so different. There's so much interesting culture and cuisine in that food. It's just absolutely
How do
wonderful.
you say
In my
spoon in
neighborhood-
Spanish?
Cuchara.
La Cuchara.
Yeah.
That's a place that we found that's just recently opened up in Houston.
That's also
And
good.
it is amazing.
Wow,
Like
I love it.
5
In
stars.
my neighborhood, you'll
Everyone
go
should
to a
go.
little place that's been painted that specific color yellow.
Mm-hmm.
And when you sit down at the table, they don't bring you chips and salsa. They bring you a bowl of beans, and then you start ordering your food.
Nice.
Like, and it's authentic Mexican, and depending on which place you go, which region. And these are not expensive places at all, and food is so good.
Yeah.
And I love that. And there's like 4 or 5 of those just around my neighborhood,
Love it.
depending on where you want to.
Love it.
Go
This
for
is
lunch.
this is truly a wonderfully international city. A lot of people would not realize that about Houston. They think it's just pickup trucks with steer horns on the front, and
in
and
their
there's that
defense,
too.
there's a lot of that.
There
yes.
is that too, but there is every ethnicity is represented in Houston, and every ethnicity's cuisine, I think, is represented in Houston. But that said, anything that has to do with Mexico, you'll find an abundance of wonderful representation of that in this city.
And
we're lucky.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful that you guys have given me the opportunity to share my culture.
Well,
I've been in Texas since 1982, so I have a lot of love for Texas, but also Mexico. And I have had the opportunity through the Institute of Hispanic Culture and other venues to give presentations, and people get always fascinated by
it's fascinating stuff. And by the way, your timeline means that you bought this after you'd been here for 2 years. So that's pretty exciting too.
Also, it's a pleasure. You say it's a pleasure for you to be here. I'm like, it's a pleasure to be in your presence
Well,
and absorb your
absolutely.
knowledge
Absolutely.
and
We-
all that you have to offer.
We love having you
It's
on the
fantastic.
show. I remember after the very first time we had you on, Liliana, one of the comments was, I don't remember, maybe it was Bruce Stark, I don't remember.
Yeah, it
but he
was
said something
Bruce.
about he'd learned more about tequila in just this show than like he'd known in his whole life. And it's absolutely true. You have such a rich knowledge, but what I think is even more amazing than the knowledge is the enthusiasm that you have for it, and that's what makes it so much fun to be around you. Thank you for coming
Thank
in.
you.
Let's do this again. In fact, I think we should. Because didn't we do an añejo blind taste test? Is that what we did last time?
Yes,
All right,
we
well,
did.
it's time for a reposado blind
Yeah.
taste test, don't you think?
I'm in.
I'm in.
All right, so,
for it.
If
so
we
we'll
plan it,
schedule
I will book my flight
Okay,
back
yeah,
to Texas. I will be here.
Well, we would love to have you, and any excuse I can get you, I can use to get you and Adam on a plane to come back, we will use. So.
We will always be coming back.
And Bruce Stark put up here, he's a little concerned. He says, does Adam know how much you love art, and what about Art's wife?
I think that brings us to a good place to end the show. I'd like to say thanks to Doug on the Wheels of Steel, who is stepping in to replace Adam once Adam is gone. And big thanks, of course, to Brianna and Liliana for making this show so much fun today. And wow, we had some good stuff. I would say to those of you who made it all the way through with the show, thank you very much for being here. We wish you a happy Cinco de Mayo, and cheers y'all.
Salud.
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 Dinero y amor.